I want to begin by discussing masculinity in a state of crisis. So contrary to what may have been said and what you have heard, masculinity is in a state of crisis. Men cannot reach are suffering from traditional masculinity, predominantly low income black community. It's an urban community. And before I got to college, 2 weeks before actually I attended SIU for my freshman year, I was walking down the street with a couple of my friends. We were going to just to go work out and go hang out and stuff like that. We were walking down the street. There was 3 of us, and coming towards us was 3 other gentlemen. And of course, when you're walking down the sidewalk, you kind of step to the side and let them brush on by, and then you continue on with your day. But in this particular instance, the people walking past me, one of the guys bumped into me. And my first thought was, at the time, oh no, man, nah, he ain't bumping into me. I gotta do something because my guys watching. I can't let them know I'm soft. I gotta say something to them. I ain't letting that ride. And this is urban black English. So I turned around and I started yelling at him. Man, don't bump into me. Don't do like just trying to build my bravado because I gotta be tough. Because I want to be that guy that stood up for himself, and all my homies, and friends, and all my friends walk up to me and say, man, yeah, you did well, yeah, you won't let nobody talk to us like that. And so, at this point, I'm ready to fight. I'm squaring up, I'm putting my guards up, I'm getting ready to, and he walking in and he approaching me, and something happened. He had a gun in his face. And I stood in that moment in the middle of the street with my hands up. I stood in the middle of the street with my hands up, hoping that he doesn't pull his gun out and shoot me. And I use that narrative to describe what Michael Kimmel calls a homosocial enactment, where men perform for other men, where men, one of the things that they try and acquire is validation from their groups and receive what I like to call man points. And in that moment of me trying to seek those man points, to seek that validation, to seek that affirmation, I almost lost my life. So when we talk about initiatives and violence prevention programs, we have to be very proactive and serious about creating these programs because men's lives are on the balance. Women's lives are on the balance. People lose their lives over something as simple as masculinity, traditional masculinity. I came to talk about how men are investing in this traditional masculinity. And the question that I always ask is, how much is masculinity worth? How much is this traditional masculinity worth? All right? And we have a culture and society that supplies a rigid elucidation of traditional masculinity that demands men to conform. And I like to call this supply and demand. Falls short into trying to fit into characteristics such as aggression. Men in U.S. contemporary society feel like they have to be aggressive. They have to be powerful. They have to be dominating. They have to be all of these things, which can be very problematic in how men function in a U.S. contemporary society. And a lot of times when men strive to fit into this box, it is maintained by way of policing. And so other men are reinforcing and reproducing this understanding of traditional masculinity. So if any man chooses to step outside of the box, there will be countless number of men who forcibly push and pressures him into fitting into this box. As you see in some of these photos, you see the same masculine script. These men are aggressive. These men are tough. These men are powerful. These men are dominant. These men are over-sexualized beings, and their whole conception of themselves is to have sexual conquest. And all of these different things end up hurting men. And they can never reach their full humanity because they're fed images which constructs this false reality and this illusion. And they try their best to fit this script, which is extremely, extremely unrealistic. So men are sold this product. And a lot of times when we think about masculinity, it's spectacle. It's mostly spectacle. And men are, when we see these representation of men, it's sensationalized and it's glamorized. A lot of men, they invest in traditional masculinity so much that it's even in their 401k plan. It's even in their 401k plan. They invest in it so much that they think that they're able to retire reaching their stockholders. They invest in this system and they hope to get some type of benefit or return on investment within this system. That system specifically, I'm talking about sexism. And that leads to the Great Depression, all right? And so a lot of times, stockholders, they are passive participants to sexism. And I like to think of that as like residual income. And so those who invest in the stock market have what's called residual income. So they're making money without actually having to work or spend any time and those types of things. A lot of men who remain silent are just passive participants. They're not active agents into combating some of these sexist kind of ideologies and beliefs and values and attitudes. And so what happens when you remain silent about some of these things? And the answer is everybody loses. Everybody loses. So not speaking out, not having a voice, and those types of things, everybody loses. And women and men both are affected by sexism. Women lose via rape culture and objectification culture. And so we can use advertisements, we can use commercials, we can use music and all of these types of things to see these ideological beliefs that are represented in those things. So objectification, we can see advertisements with women literally as objects. And objectification culture talks about women as objects, or people as objects, and bodies as objects. And we can see, like in the Dolce & Gabbana photo that I showed you, the woman is surrounded by a lot of men, and she is in a over-sexualized position, clearly not representing any type of power in that context. And we can see images and all of these types of things vastly produced in media culture. And we also have to talk about how they lose via rape culture and sustaining the culture of violence. Things like sexual assault, rape, and domestic violence can occur when we remain silent about most of these issues, all of these issues. And so in the rape culture is based on normalizing sexual assault and not challenging any of those beliefs. And so in the rape culture, things like victim blaming happens. So when a woman is sexually assaulted, instead of saying, well, he shouldn't have sexually assaulted her, we say things like, well, she shouldn't have been out at night. Well, she shouldn't have worn that particular piece of clothing. Well, she probably wanted it. And we reproduce these types of myths that are not true, and they're very problematic because it doesn't address what the real issues are. And an example that I like to use is if somebody says, hey, my son or daughter got hit by a car, you wouldn't say, well, they should have took the bus. That would just be ridiculous to say something like that. And that's how ridiculous all victim blaming is. And you want to always start by believing when we talk about women who have been sexually assaulted, since a small number of women actually false report. And that's a huge myth that a lot of people use to try and justify primitive behaviors such as sexual assault. But women are also discriminated against, whether that is via education, workforce, all of those types of things, and they are also marginalized. But a lot of times, we don't engage in how sexism also hurts men. And a lot of men do something called cool posing, all right? So cool posing describes this phenomenon in which men put on a disguise. Men hide who they are. They try to mask who they are to meet other people's expectations. And so and I'll share a narrative about my father. When I was very small, my father told me, when he was growing up in the projects, he's from Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago, but the Robert Taylor Homes is torn down now. My father looked me in my eyes and told me, when I was your age, I used to look in the mirror and teach myself not to smile. I used to have to look in the mirror and teach myself not to smile because I didn't want people to walk up on me and mug me or even murder me. And we live in a cultural society where that is a reality for some people. And the cool posing, what it does is it keeps men stoic, and it keeps them hidden, and it makes them angry. And then they have anger, and their actions reflect the anger that they're feeling intrinsically. And men do not reach their full humanity. Men are unable to step outside of themselves and modify their self-concept. All right. And it also it offers limited social scripts. So a lot of men have to conform to that man box. A lot of men, if they're not aggressive, if they're not tough, if they're not dominating, they're out. So I talked about being stockholders. Stockholders are those who expect beneficial things. Stockholders are people who aren't really connected to it. It's just passive things. They have no personal ties, no responsibility whatsoever. If it collapses, it collapses. If my investments don't run through, oh well, I can just invest in something else. But we want to move past being stockholders. We want to become stakeholders. Stakeholders are supportive mechanisms that all work together in order to create social change. Things like community networks, things like businesses, things like schools, they all have to have a vested interest in gender violence and any gender violence and redefining how we discuss masculinity. It's also very personal because a lot of men lose the people that they love in their lives. A lot of men lose them, their sisters, their mothers, their aunts. 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted. 1 in 5 women will be sexually assaulted on a college campus as their tenure there on the college campus. So these are very personal things. I don't want us, because a lot of men become subjective to all of these things and make it seem like it's a distant thing. Well, that can't happen to me. Well, that doesn't happen near me, but it happens. And it would take men to join women in fighting for to end gender violence. And women have been on the forefront of trying to end gender violence forever. And we need men to step up and